do it. Alex served on that committee, I think, twice with Martin and I, and he did a fabulous job. And everyone has really tried to work, I believe, in harmony to show the taxpayers that we really put our best foot forward to make this new form of government work. And so that's where we're at. What I tried to do in this first year, because I know that those on the commission that formed the charter believe so firmly that they needed a body there, no matter who won that election, whether it was Dominic Stagliano or Matt Osborne, they needed a CEO running this county government, a person that's there all the time. So I've tried my hardest to leave the politics at the door, have constant communication, and compromise all year, not only with Matt, but the entire legislature. And one of the ways I did that was to promise I would not be in the halls of that legislature or that annex building every single day giving our employees the thought that they had two bosses.
Yeah.
So I've done that, and many will tell you that for that reason that I haven't partaken. And, so along with that comes the compromise. And I also, what I wanted to do was to challenge. And if you look at my chairman appointments of these standing committees, I wanted to challenge everybody that I could. Martin Kelly, again, nothing to do with Republican, Democrat, but, Duke was the Shared Services Committee. Ryan White's was Economic Development. Barbara, Personnel. So it was across the board. And I challenged every one of them with all the work we had to do to work, use our research specialists, do whatever you needed to do.
Now, what is a research specialist?
Research specialist is the person, the only person that we hired to work in our office. And our clerk is there.
Works just for the legislature?
Works just for the legislature. Well, listen, yes, works for the legislature at our request to do any research that we may want. For example, if the county executive brought the fee that we've all talked about to us, we would go to the research specialist and say, look, here's the analysis that the county exec and his offices have done. We would like you to do an analysis, compare it, make sure that it's similar or that it differs, and educate us if need be on that. Just like we would with the other hot topic we'll get into later, with the personnel policy and the effects of that. Yeah. So,
okay, is this a new position, or did the old legislature have it?
The Board of Supervisors had a legislative aid position a while ago. We've had a part-time clerk. It's been a real.
Well, of course, there was no executive then.
There was no executive.
Yeah,
so this research specialist, who happens to be Jackie Miola, she was actually our legislative aide back then. At our request, charter review. Done a phenomenal job with Ryan to include NISAC on any of the hiccups that we have in the charter. My statement there isn't to criticize you or anyone that was on it, but but there were some things. There's some things in that charter that were ambiguous.
Yeah.
We don't understand.
Some of which were created by the legislature when they changed one of the terms of the charter at the last minute. But that's okay.
About Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
by the
former Board of Supervisors.
Right. That you and Michael sat on.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to amend, but I wasn't allowed because the Republicans held a caucus and outgunned us. It was like 12-3.
Who did you caucus with, Michael?
I can only caucus with myself.
Okay.
Because I was a lone conservative.
So, I challenge, as I'll get back to, I've challenged these chair of these committees to go out, do their homework, wherever that may be, use our research specialists, bring this information back to committee, let the committee decide the things that they need to present to us as a legislature, after getting all the information that they can from county exec, no matter what the topic.
Well, that's my main concern. I think you said you wanted to come on. Bob was gracious enough to have you on. The question became, I attended that meeting where the stipend, because that's the main issue, was presented. And what had happened, I'm sitting in the audience, and all of a sudden you said this went through, and you picked up a piece of paper and said, I intend to amend what was taken out. You wanted us to go through that, what happened, because we're all in confusion. what was presented, what meetings weren't had that should have been had. Would you like to go through that just to clarify it?
Yeah, and
once
let's
for
back
all?
up to September, the first time this
Right.
appeared on the agenda of the legislature. You were telling us off camera, off mic, that when this was first presented, the policy was not attached to the resolution, correct?
That's correct.
The
So
23-page
resolution was
policy or
tabled on
whatever.
September 30th.
Okay, all right. After September 30th, what happened next?
Well, let me just clarify one thing that Michael said. The hot topic item, or ever how you phrased it, about the stipend.
Right.
This is about much more than a
I
stipend.
know, we're going to get into it.
This is about the personnel policy
Right.
itself, and there's a whole litany of what's within
That's
that
what I wanna
policy
discuss with
that's
you.
existed long before the
I have
legislature.
both policies. So.
Right.
All right.
So on September 30th, we tabled the resolution. The reason for tabling the resolution at the time, and I mean, you could go back and review videos and look, the county executive had been given the county executive was working on this policy, and apparently had submitted to the personnel chairman, at which time I believe the personnel chairman may have made some changes to that, sent it back to the county exec, and the county executive needed time to review it. So there was no policy attached. The county exec said, look, I'll do this as soon as I can, but I need to review what you've just added to this.
Right. And the personnel chairman was Barbara Wheeler. Who else was on that committee?
On that committee, Joe Isabel, Ryan Weitz, Terry Beniak, and
Was Martin on that committee?
I believe Martin Kelly.
Okay.
Of course, I don't have it right
Right.
in front of me, but
All right. Now it comes. You've handed me a.
before you go there, let me
Yeah.
just make another comment. The other hot topic is the health insurance.
Yeah, but I have,
And-
we'll
and-
do this first because I have that, because that bothers me immensely.
Well, just so you understand, there was
There's a sheriff.
there was a letter to the editor by Ryan, legislator Weitz, and it pointed to greed and to and accusations towards. I
Wasn't
believe,
very complimentary.
It wasn't very complimentary. That's right. And let me just clarify that. Legislator Beniak, who most of you know, was a long time Montgomery County employee with,
Right.
I believe, 28
Yeah,
years.
a long time.
He had approached me and said to me, Tom, I'm coming upon the age of retirement at 55, was thinking about retiring, was wondering about the health insurance and how it might pertain to me. Nothing to do with personnel policy, because I didn't even know that the county executive was reviewing it or getting ready to review it or offer anything up to us. And I said, sure, I'm going to talk to the county executive and see if he can't look into that for you. He also pointed out to me that he was a part-time employee for 4 years with the county and had never received nothing, and that, we've made a strong pitch here to try to keep our part-time people happy to keep him, so that, for instance, sheriff's deputies, they get trained here, they leave here, they're gone. They are under a collective bargaining agreement, but I don't believe they receive health insurance, or maybe they shouldn't. So anyway, I went to the county executive, and he said to me, you know what, I'm reviewing the personnel policy as we speak. I'm going to look into those items that you talked about, whether it be legislator Beniak and his personal insurance issue or that. So don't think for a minute that it was legislator Beniak going to the county executive with anything. It was me. I did that. I'm the one who went, so if that's what he's referring to in his letter to the editor, he can blame me for that. I'm the one that did that. It wasn't Terry, it wasn't, so.
So what transpired?
Well, here we go. Let's get specific. On Thursday, October 23, 2014, you were sent a forwarded message from the clerk of the board regarding this resolution.
That's correct.
For the following special meeting on the following Tuesday, and the resolution attaches the non-bargaining personnel policy that is sought to be adopted by the resolution, effective January 1, 2013 to December 31, 2016. Okay? And let me just read this, because this is from the clerk of the board to you and other members of the...
Every member.
Yeah.
Every member.
Every member of the Board of Legislature.
Probably the media's on there.
Yeah. No. All right. This is from Cheryl Reese, who's clerk of the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Please find the non-bargaining personnel policy. It is also attached to the resolution for the special meeting at 5:45 on Tuesday, October 14th. Yeah, this is not October 23rd. We're back in, I was,
It's October 9th.
yeah,
Probably.
this is October 9th. You're right. October 9th, and the meeting is scheduled for the 14th.
14th.
Right. This is Cheryl Reese speaking. Chairwoman Wheeler would like to update the legislature. She and the county executive worked on the policy separate and together and have come to a meeting of the minds for the non-bargaining employees. She is pleased to say that this was a collaborative effort on both sides that resulted in a policy that works for the betterment of government. If you have any questions about any particulars, please feel free to contact Chairwoman Wheeler or the county executive. Okay? You received this on October 9th, or it was sent on October 9th. The meeting scheduled for the 14th. Attached is, I think I said 23-page, or no, it's even more than that, 27-page policy with charts attached, etc.
Very similar to the same policy that's been in place, with the exception of increases in pay, and not that they don't mean a lot, but verbiage-wise, it's not a whole lot different.
We'll get into that. Regardless of the how it changed prior policy or not, that is not relevant at this point. What was attached here, you're telling me, is not what was put up for a vote on the 14th, correct? That the policy, that between October 9th and October 14th, there were changes made in the document called non-bargaining personnel policy, correct?
Yes, because we received another email from Cheryl for the chairman of personnel, which I believe was about 4 hours before the meeting.
Okay.
Which
On October 14th?
On October 14th, outlining what had been changed.
Okay. And that was the first you heard of any change?
Yes.
All right. And what items were changed?
Believe the part-time, actually, I think I have with me. The following items have been removed. Personnel Chairwoman Wheeler asked me to forward the attachment, non-bargaining personnel policy with revisions. Following items have been removed. Stipends for the legislative committee chairs, health insurance, including dental and vision for all part-time employees, including legislators. Those employees who hold more than one non-bargaining position shall only be paid longevity through the one title in which they have served the longest period of time. If there are any questions or concerns, please feel free to call Chairwoman Wheeler on her cell. So,
all right. So what happened between October 9th and October 14th that these items were changed, if you know?
Well, I can tell you what didn't happen. There was no personnel committee meeting that I'm aware of. I don't know. There was nothing in particular with this, but that would have to be something that you ask Chairwoman Wheeler, not I, because I didn't change this. But what bothered me about the change, and I think this is important for your listeners to hear and understand, was not only did the changes occur, but that original email that you had read with the posting, we posted that on our internet for the whole public to see. Now, nobody may not pay attention to that. I don't know. But that original, so to me, that's what we announced to the public was going to be on the agenda, and for them to come and to speak about or talk or whatever. When it changed, I sent an email, to Barbara and the rest of the legislators stating, doesn't this need an amendment? Because I don't believe, and I explained this with Barbara, and we're good about it, and it's just a procedural thing, but I don't believe I, as chairman of the board of legislators, or Barbara as chairman of a committee, or Mike Chiara, or anybody else, have the ability just to do that. So my whole purpose for the meeting night, which Michael was in attendance, was to make sure that this was
what got
put up,
voted on was what was presented.
posted to the public.
Okay.
Whether you were in favor, against.
Is that why you amended?
It's exactly why I amended. The only reason I amended that.
So it was amended to go back to what was presented to the public the previous
No,
time.
at that point at the meeting, anyone, including myself, could have amended it and done more.
So previous on this program, I asked one simple question, which I would ask. This just doesn't appear from the sky, the policy. How did the health insurance there and the stipend get put in there? Who created it? What's the idea? Who created that amount that you should get a stipend? Who?
I guess the question is, who created the document that was originally presented on October
since most
9th?
of it is basically the same language, because I read them both last night, except for a few things I want to discuss concerning the money. But when that stipend was in one of them previous, that number 4 didn't exist. The next time it did exist. How did it get there? Who decided?
I think the first email answered the question.
Well, wait a minute. Well, I don't think. I don't think I understand it. Was there a group collaboration? Who decided that you should have $1,250 stipend? How did it get there?
Chairwoman Wheeler told me that Ryan Whites had come up with a stipend.
The guy that wrote the letter against you.
Exactly. Now, I wasn't there for the conversation. The only thing I could tell you was there was no committee meeting. I can't tell you. All I know is I received the document, just like you have in front of you, that said it was a combined collaborative effort, separate and apart, and presented by. So I'm feeling like all year long I've been compromising, and although I don't agree with everything in every document that I have voted for, you can't have you got to play in the sandbox. So I'm feeling like if Matt, our county executive, and Chairwoman Wheeler, along with whoever helped with the document, are good with it, if
Well,
they're good with
obviously
it.
something happened because it was pulled and he's vetoed it. So there has to be.
Well, there's a
something that
veto
occurred.
message. Did you read his veto
No, I
message?
did not.
His veto message says that he, in particular, feels that the committee process was a bit flawed. It's online if you want to read it. And I believe it also says that he is basically opposed to the part-time health insurance and the stipend.
So that would also indicate to me, if I want to go back and Bob's the brain and the lawyer, then why was it there to begin with?
It's
I mean, if you don't agree with it, it doesn't appear.
Right. And again, it goes back to who authored. And it just was not me.
If there was no, as far as you know, there was no personnel committee meeting at any time on this subject, right?
Other than during personnel committee meetings, maybe the chair saying that we're working on it.
Yeah.
We're working on it, but nothing was discussed during
There's a
committee
flaw in the
meetings.
system.
Well, the flaw in the system is it didn't happen, and shame on us for not saying, hey, when is the committee meeting over this? But again, I shouldn't have assumed, but I thought it was all, everybody was okay with it. While I don't agree with everything, I actually proposed to Barbara at one time in a conversation, and also I believe to the county executive, that a sliding scale, if you really feel adamant that part-timers should receive health insurance, do that on a sliding scale that said something like, look, if you've been here 0 to 5 years, you got to pay 100%. If you've been here 6 to 10 years, you're going to pay 90%. If you've been here, and so on. And then if you've been here 30 years, well, maybe we can. It would affect a lot less. But apparently that wasn't what their compromise was.
So
if there was a compromise, I don't know. I don't want to speak for the county exec.
if we follow what you're saying and what other people have told you here, Whites goes to Wheeler and says, want the $1,250 stipend, whatever. Wheeler and Ossenfort pound out this policy, which is put together in the document of October 9th, which includes that stipend, among other things.
At least that's what the email says.
Right, right. So what you're saying essentially is that 3 people who have gone on record as being violently opposed to this were the only 3 people who actually created it in the first place.
They were in favor of it before they were opposed to it. Sounds like the Democratic playbook.
Listen, I'm not going to speak for the county executive. That email certainly did not come from him.
It did not.
This did not come from the county executive. County executive and I have had conversations in which he obviously said he would take a look at the personnel policy, and maybe there was something that could be done. I thought he was very receptive to my sliding scale. If something happened between there and the, you'd have to ask him. But I'm not going to comment for him.
Well,
I can only.
What I can say is what I've seen. And all I can tell you is what I've seen. The document I've seen, he did not have the stipend. And I talked to him at the meeting, because I turned right to him, as you know, I'm very forward. And I says, are you in favor of the stipend? And he told me no. So if you want to take it from there, I've got to take him at his word.
I don't believe Matt was in favor of the stipend. And again, another little part of this that I think is important, because I did have a conversation with Matt about this, and this was our conversation, and it involved this whole bucket system and whether or not the county executive could be included in it. My thought on that is, if you can include the sheriff, and you can include the county clerk, and you include the treasurer, why wouldn't the county executive be?
Except the DA.
Well, the DA and also the
Coroners.
well, they're all elected part-time, one of which is my wife. But listen, he asked me about that, and I said, I believe you should be in that if you're going to have that policy. Now, legislator Isabella at our one meeting said he doesn't, elected officials know what they get when they run for office, and he shouldn't get it. But at the time, I don't believe, and you could ask him, if he knew that there was this bucket system in which the sheriff will get $5,000 or $5,500 this year. We'll get into that. But
Right.
How is that legal without a local law? Because the state law says you cannot increase a person's compensation during their term of office.
it's termed under longevity. You know, I don't know how it's done under.
Well, it's okay if the longevity policy is in effect before the term, but it's still in. In other words, you can put a long,
2007 it was
now
created.
the sheriff is running this year. You could put in a longevity policy now saying that he gets a raise each of the next 3 or 4 years of his term.
Or we could take it away.
Or you could take it away.
It says that here.
Yeah, you can do that. But that affects next year. It doesn't affect this year.
It
Right.
says it here. It says effective January 1, 2015.
Okay, that's
employees with 30 years of
Remember,
service.
what you're reading, Michael, did not pass.
fine. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I know that, but it
but
wasn't
that's
in
just what we're
position. I
voting
know,
on.
I know
Yeah.
you're going to go over this again with a fine-tooth
Well,
comb, correct?
I would assume we will, but my position
Oh, by the way,
is-
let me interrupt and say this is WCSS 1490 on your dial in Amsterdam, New York. This is the show with no name. Our special guest today is the chairman of the county legislature, Tom Quackenbush.
You know, if you read the old policy that Michael has here, it ended December 31st, 2012. My position as we sit here today is we don't have a personnel policy.
We don't.
And there's no money on the table for anyone. We
Well,
don't have that policy. They're not guided under the Taylor law. They're not bargaining.
Have they been paid these longevity increases for 2013 and 2014?
Yes.
They have been.
No, 13. 13. I believe
If
13.
it ended in 12, they've been paid for 13.
I believe so. I
Well, that would have been when you were on the board.
Yeah, when you
Michael.
were on the board, Michael.
I never got a check. And I was a part-time employee legislator. I would have taken it anyway, a check like that. But I'm talking about this. You've got 2 longevity
Oh, wait a
policies.
minute. Let's back up a minute. You were on the board with me,
Yeah, and I didn't pass the one in 2009.
but you didn't cry when they got paid.
I didn't know anything about it.
Well, then
Okay, and that
but you
happens.
were a legislator. You should have known something.
I should have
about
known. I agree. And so should you have.
Absolutely.
Okay?
We
Very
agree.
simply. But right now you had one longevity policy, the old one. Now you've got 2. And I'm wondering, the 2 is to go back to what in 2013-14. Here's your first one. It says prior to January 1, 2015. You got this huge table here.
Yes.
Okay, up to 5,000 on 30 years. Then you go after 2015.
Yeah, somebody that's up into that 30th
Everything
year.
has been increased by $500 on this schedule. So if I've been working there 7 years, I get $2,000.
Yes.
Do I get $2,000, assuming we don't talk about elected officials? Do I get $2,000 here again? So do I actually get $4,000?
I think the way that reads, you would.
And why would you do something like this? There's people going to get $20 a month on Social Security. This is ridiculous.
Which is why I said to you, this is about a lot more than 9 legislators.
And I agree with that. But don't you think you ought to have a meeting and look at this before anybody votes?
Yeah,
I mean, it would make common sense. Now you go here to dental and vision, and I had to read this 3 times. The county shall provide all full-time employees, and it says Appendix A2, and full-time elected officials, that's interesting, individual dental and vision care at no cost to the employee. How much does that entail?
Well, again, The county executive probably has done an analysis. I don't believe I've seen it.
Well, I asked for it at that
If
meeting.
he's done an
I don't know
analysis,
what the answer
that
is.
analysis would be given to us on these other issues of cost out, and then we would give it to our research specialist to either confirm or.
But if he did veto, this passed. Let's be honest about it. If he did not veto, this would have passed.
And you know, one of the things I think is annoying people is if you hadn't raised the taxes and talked about putting on a new fee, I suppose most people wouldn't care much about these increases in personnel costs, including yourselves. But when the taxes are going up to about the maximum level they're allowed under state law, you can understand why people might be a little more curious than they might otherwise have been.
Well, it's like when we talk about raising the legislator's salary. Next year, it's very likely I won't have a committee chairmanship.
Why is that?
Well, because I'm not going to be chairman of the board, and I don't know that anybody will want to. They may want to give some others the opportunity that didn't have any this year.
All right.
And I'm not vying for it. I'm not
Well,
out there
here's-
saying.
I got a question then. Do you really you assume the veto is not going to be overturned?
You know, it's funny because on our agenda for Tuesday night, and just so people are not confused, on our agenda for Tuesday night, you'll see the resolution come up under unfinished business again. And the reason that is, according to the charter, which you helped create,
I did.
you have to have a veto message, and from the time that veto message is presented at the next special meeting or full meeting, which will be Tuesday, the clock starts ticking for 30 days.
Yeah.
Now, that means you really can't do anything with this until the 30 days is up and we've had the opportunity to either put it up for a vote, right? Doesn't mean you can't have a committee meeting, but
Right.
you're not going to put it up again until at least that 30 days. I had said it might not be a bad idea because we all know that this is probably going to be, the veto is not going to be overridden. And if we did put it up for a vote Tuesday night and we all voted not to override, we could actually start working right away.
Makes sense.
But just so people understand, when you see it on the agenda, it isn't because there's
You're not anticipating that the veto will be overridden,
no.
or that anyone will be
No.
supporting an override.
Sometimes you have to allow things to work out, to bring things out.
Yeah.
We've seen a flaw in the system here.
Well, I have to agree with you. You were very good at the meeting I went after, which was last week, where you said, I don't care how long it takes to go over this. And that's what I would want to hear, that you would go through this carefully with everything that you need to do. I don't want to hear, well, let's get it done quick.
Well, I know Chairman Wheeler would like to get this going, and when we say quick, if you had 5 meetings in a row and did it in a week, you may very well have put your time in. But if you're going to wait and have 1 meeting a month, one person, it might take a while. Mr. Patel is the one who, after apologizing
Right.
for his vote,
I give him credit for that.
said, "Look, I need time to look this over," and he used a time frame of like 30 or 45 days. And I said, I agree with everything that Bob just said, except one thing. I don't care if it takes 6 months. I mean, you need to
Do it
really
right.
do it and do it
Which
right. Now
brings-
that we've learned.
Which brings me, I know I'm getting a little bit.
Listen, I'm not trying to say that I'm not guilty here. I will
This
take.
isn't a matter of guilt or anything
That's
else.
right.
It's a
I
matter
will
of
take
telling
as
the
much
public
responsibility.
that you know now that you got to have more transparency, as they use that word, to the public. Because who knew about it? I was the only one at the meeting, and I only heard it by rumor.
Right. I don't.
So who knew?
I don't know that there was any. Ryan in his letter to the editor may, making. I don't know, but there was no. I'm part of Chairman Wheeler. I'm part of Ryan, who created the stipend, according to Barbara, or anyone else. I don't think there was any intentional hiding of anything.
But it also is that when I just read this about some of the stuff that's in here, who really knew in the county of Montgomery that any of this is going on with the 5,000
Well,
or the rest
it's been
of it?
there
Come
since
on.
2007.
Yeah, okay,
so.
that's good. But how many people pay attention? Which I want to ask you this question. Going to Bob. 2015, the base salary of the sheriff has increased by 1.5%, according to your schedule in here. And if you, I'm just using him as an example. And 2% here. Now, what bothers me is you got a slash here. You got increments, $1,250. Is that on top of that? Because you got a little page here in the back which says an increment schedule, or it's in the front here. There's like, it's how many years you've been there. You see that? What does that mean?
That's what your increments based on 1 year, 6 to 10, 11 to 15. That's what bucket you fall in. They call it a bucket.
Assume if you were there for 20 years, you get 4 increments?
Yeah, number of increments. You get 4.
4 on this schedule. So
Yeah.
if you got the Commissioner of Public Works at $1,100,
Yeah, if he's going to get
4
11,
of those.
if he's been there for 1 increment, 0 to whatever it was, 5 years, he gets 1. 6 to 10 is 2. Yeah,
So actually, because what's bothering me here is you've got the county executive in here an increment of $1,250. That's going to be a misprint.
the county executive is at 1250 because he's only in his first year.
But he gets an increment.
Well, yeah, that's what this says.
Well, I don't think any of us knew that. Did you know that?
No.
I don't see
know
how.
that?
I don't see how he could possibly get an
That's what I'm
increment.
asking- that's what I'm asking the lawyer.
It's changing his. It's changing his salary during his term
Jerry
of office.
Shiraki, is that how it's Jerry?
Shiraki.
And I had a conversation about that, and I had said to him, I'm not a lawyer, but I looked at it as though the increment was not part of the base. It was
That's
what
what I'm looking at here.
Right.
Well, if it was I wasn't there.
I stand up for it and say if the rest get it, he ought to get it.
Well, your old legislature, your old board of supervisors.
Tell that to the Social Security
All right,
recipients.
you two were both on the board of supervisors. You set the county executive salary.
At 85.
Which I disagreed with.
I know you did.
Well, whatever it is, you two set, or your
Right.
board set it.
Right.
And unless that increment was built in, he doesn't get that until his next term. He can't.
That's what I would think.
He can't get it legally anyway.
He's got a 4-year term, and when that
You're
term,
right.
the next time he gets elected,
That's why I
he gets
wondered. I
elected,
said
he
this
gets
had to be a
If-
misprint,
if they-
correct?
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. The old board of supervisors set that salary because that's what the charter said we would
Right.
do.
Right.
All right. So, and what you're saying is he set it for that. We set it for that term.
Well, that's correct.
So,
all elected officials.
Right.
Right.
They can't be changed during their term of office,
So,
except by local law, subject to.
well, I don't think there was ever a
referendum.
local. I don't think there was ever a
Well,
local.
that's what
law.
I'm saying. So anything here that's giving increments to elected officials that were not adopted before their term of office began cannot be given to them except by local law.
You know, back when the salaries were being discussed and we were the board of supervisors, I just did what you wanted me to do, Mike. Yeah.
I argued with you because you wanted to raise it to 15 or 20. The
And
legislature
I
said,
wanted
no way.
And I wanted the executive, and what you said back to me was something like, "No, when they get elected, they can raise their own
And
salaries," and that's what
because
they did.
Because it's in your charter. Doesn't say I agree that you should, but the charter gave you permission
Right.
to do that. I didn't realize I was going to see a schedule here with these numbers. They must be based on percentages or something, right? 'Cause
You know
they're
what's
all over the
odd?
place.
What I don't understand is this. And you know what? And I'm not criticizing you folks here on the radio. We are focusing on this $1,250.
I'm focusing on all of this.
Well, we're focusing on this $1,250 stipend, but nobody in the guardians of the taxpayers' dollars who wrote letters to the editor, who stood up against this forcefully, nobody is talking about like the trip to NISAC to Buffalo.
I put a freedom of information request
mean,
in. I
there
haven't
were-
been
there were
answered.
eight-
So
What
that's
are we
not
talking
true.
about here? What's NISAC?
NISAC is the New York State Association of Counties. They have their annual meeting up in Buffalo
Okay.
this year. And we had, 8 representatives from this county, not just legislators, attend this. Now, I'm in for the chairman or the county exec or maybe and I'm not criticizing anybody that went. I'm really not, because I believe, especially in their first year, it might have been helpful. But how do you criticize and say that you're the guardian of the taxpayers' dollars? And then, one legislator we paid something for and never went.
Isn't this the second time they went? Did they go down to Albany first? Was there 2?
Wow, this is the only NISAC meeting I know of. But, Ryan went. Ryan was very critical of the guardian of the taxpayers. I mean, come on. Well, you can't. That trip would have been 2 of these stipends or more.
Doesn't make any of them.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, how do we as legislators criticize each other when in another aspect it's okay for 8 county officials to head off to Buffalo for the NISAC meeting? Now, I just to be very transparent, I was there, but I was there on my work-related business, not at county taxpayer expense, and I didn't attend any of that stuff. I was there for work. So if somebody says, well, Tom was there, that's true, I was. But you won't see any bills submitted by Tom Quackenbush for anything.
But being on the finance committee, you have seen bills.
Well, we're all on the finance committee, including all those that went. Now, again, for those legislators who are not complaining, for instance, that did attend, I think they should have. I really do. I think they should have. But they're not complaining about and saying that we have to be very mindful of the taxpayer dollars, and then,
Did they get certificates about all the classes that they attended?
You'd have to ask them because, as I said, I didn't attend.
Well, let me ask you a question going back to the very first meeting. Because I see the budget change, I have to say, if I'm sitting in the town of Glen and town of Florida, I'm not going to say you did a good job on the budget. I think you did an awful job on the budget, okay? The taxes are raised again. We get away with it here, which God help us, I'm glad, because of the equalization rate, all right? The question is, you gave Matt $50,000, I think, at the beginning of the year, and I believe that was for attorneys. So you have a county attorney, but his pay went up, I believe, $10,000. What was the reason for that?
I believe, if you look, you're going to see that as a full-time position now. So the thought from the county executive is that he would like a full-time attorney there.
Okay.
And reduced from that budget was someplace in the neighborhood of $17,000.
Right.
That would
Which you would never support me when I wanted to put it up as a supervisor.
That will no longer be
Right.
there.
Which is true. I had to take it out both years I was there. They all looked at me. But I'm glad you did it.
But you know as well as I do, Michael, you and I both as former assessors
Right.
understand the equalization
Right.
rate, the impact. But now we have a county legislature that is not supposed to go pick apart these individual town, city, hamlet issues and is supposed to work.
But you ought to have an idea what the impacts might be on somebody.
Well, we do have an.
Did you?
But
Did you
here's
have an
what
idea
here's
of the impacts when you did
absolutely.
this?
I knew that Glenn was going up 12%, but here's what used to happen on the old board of supervisors. I can remember this happened. You can ask Ron Barone. Ron Barone sat.
talk.
We sat.
It's hard.
Come on, why won't you ask him? So, $1.6 million we wanted to use a fund balance because the city's taxes were going to go up and the town of Mohawk were going to go up quite a bit. We used $1.6 million of fund balance to alleviate that. That's the problem
bless you.
That's the problem with looking at that. Too many deals were being made. That's why you wanted this new form of government, so we didn't do that. So now we as town supervisors aren't fighting over how much money we get for snow contracts anymore because it's not our fight. It's our fight to get the roads plowed and do it at the most economical way we can for the county residents. That's what you wanted here.
Yep.
That's, to me, that's. But again, on that,
How many positions did you add in this current budget, in the one you just adopted?
I believe since January 1st, because you can't leave those out.
Yeah. All right,
We, for instance, the first meeting we had, I believe, we had the communications specialist added. We had our legislative research specialist added. So you can't. I think there was a total of 23.
There's quite a few in this budget.
23 total with deputy commissioners for. But again, here comes the compromise. Matt and I had a conversation one day, and he was talking about hiring 8 deputy commissioners of different departments. And I said, well, I just can't go along with that. You have to explain to me why you need that. So in our thoughts, we had a discussion on and what I deemed what he really needed, and that was a labor relations specialist, because a lot of his problems were with department heads, for instance, with discipline, handing it out differently. I said, you don't want 8 new people doing that. You want 1, the department head ought to do it, but 2, have a labor relation. So we compromised on that. So, it was a compromise in which he come back to 1 instead of 8, and I think it was good.
Well, while you're here, one more thing. How do you
She's
feel
doing a
about
phenomenal
the fee?
job. The fee, well, listen, the fee is the fee is the fee. A tax is a tax is a tax. If we're gonna, and I said this to Matt, if that money is being totally dedicated to the roads, but if the villages in the city are now going to come in and say they need part of it, I can't go along with it, because now you've defeated the whole purpose of doing that. I'm not saying I don't have an argument. Just saying if that's what it's going to be, then I can't support it.
Okay. Hey, we got a call coming in. Let's.
Put your headphones on for you.
Whoa. I don't know what happened there. Okay. This is WCSS. You're on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good morning. I got a couple questions for our supervisor, our legislator, Quackenbush.
Go ahead.
What better the fact that he wants a stipend and for all the legislators, is he going to do a better job and then the 7,500 and the 10,000 he's getting now? Would that make him do a better job?
I don't.
That's number one.
I don't particularly care for the stipend or need it or want it, so they can keep mine if I'm appointed to a committee chairmanship.
Well, the fact that it's even brought up, there has to be, like you're saying, when you asked Mr. Austin for, he wants all these deputy commissioners, and you're asking the same question I'm asking you right now. Is it going to make it better? Are they going to make it better by increasing or having a stipend?
I would say not.
That's the same question you're asking Mr. Austin for. Is that true?
No, that's not the same question at all. My question to Mr. Ossofor about the 8 deputies was, I asked him what was the need. I needed to know what the reason was for 8, and when he explained to me that a lot of it was over the department head's inconsistency with disciplining, I said, well, then you need 1 labor relations specialist. It wasn't about the job Matt does.
Okay, then I need to know what a legislator is going to do better now in the future than he's doing right now with an increase in his stipend. Why would they even vote for it?
Yeah, I would hope that the legislators are doing their very best now. So I would hope that we wouldn't see any change in that, and I think they are doing a good job.
So is that going to be amended to? Is there going to be an amendment on the agenda where they're going to eliminate the stipend and go with the insurance, or go with the stipend and eliminate the insurance?
The resolution has been vetoed, so there's nothing there right now. There's nothing there right now. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, there is no non-bargaining unit policy because it was eliminated. Back to your question about whether or not the legislators hypothetically would do a better job with that pay increase or stipend or whatever anybody wants to call it. I guess I'd ask the same question about any of our employees who get a 1.5% or 2% raise anytime during their careers. Is it because they deserve it, because they're going to do a better job, or is it to help negotiate a fair wage? I mean, I know that there's...
Then I'll answer that question for you. All these legislators are either retired or have other jobs. A legislator on the county right now, that's not their full-time job. They're not living off $10,000. Where a county employee, that's their main cost, their main means of living, and the raise that they're getting is the cost of living increase, as compared to a legislator who's making a stipend. That's the difference. I can answer that question for you.
Well, let me ask this question to maybe Bob. Right now, Montgomery County Sewer District number 1 has a board. There's 7 people on that board. It is a county-run function. There's no debating that, right or wrong.
I think that's correct.
So right now, the chairman of that board gets a $5,000 pay, whatever you want to call it. Next year, I very well could be chairman of that because the law says it's got to be somebody from District 1, 2, or 3. Can I accept that?
No.
Huh?
You can't accept both.
Been there forever.
Right.
It's been there forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really something now that this hasn't been a bad thing because it's opened up our eyes. But there's also 3 mayors and a member at large on there. So they could get it, but we couldn't get it.
I don't think any elected official can get it. It's an ex officio part of their duties.
Well, it's
hey, let me ask you one more question about the chairmanship. You say you don't know who might be in line for it. What about Martin Kelly?
Actually, I do know who might be in line for it. When I say I don't know who's going to get it, but I do know certain individuals has told me they do not want it. Now, Martin Kelly, I believe, maybe recently has expressed an interest. Barbara Wheeler certainly wants it. She's expressed that openly to many. Wants to be the first female chair of the legislature. I think Roy Diamond is interested in it. They're the 3 that I know of.
And if you had to make a guess, who would you think is going to get it?
If I had to make a guess?
Yeah.
Well, I guessed on myself last year.
Okay, I'll make a guess. I think it's going to be Martin Kelly, from what I hear.
I think Martin.
How the voting is lining up.
Yeah, I think Martin's got I think Martin, Barbara, or Roy all have a good shot at it. They've expressed interest. They'd like to do it.
I like to say on your show, I think Martin Kelly said is the leader and the front runner right now.
Yeah,
this is what I know.
I agree. He has some good, solid support back there. But I think you heard earlier. Now I will say this. I told you I had a commitment to Barbara, Martin, Terry, and Ryan last year. So if I stay with my commitment, it would have to be, unless of course they all disagree, then everybody goes their own way shopping around, then anybody can, but Martin or Barbara would be at least in that pack.
Okay, well listen, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
All right. See, that was safe. Yeah. Oh wait, who are all those people with pitchforks and pikes coming down here and those torches?
You got to give Tommy credit for coming on here and taking this. At least he's up front, and you got to appreciate that.
I tell you, we get more straight answers from this guy than we've ever gotten from any of our guests.
Well,
I got a little better idea of what happened, and that you guys got to go back and dissect this and look out for everybody, and especially the people out there.
But wouldn't it have made sense that all this had been taken care of through the press, so the people who don't listen to our show, those 5 or 6 people,
I don't know if we want to take
know
care
what
of
happened.
it. I don't know if we want to take care of it through the press and let them make the decisions,
No.
but certainly through
No,
committee.
But
He's making a
they
good point.
should have asked some very specific questions, just as you've been asked today, to see what the process was and what happened, so people know. We get such a cursory look at things that occur in this city and county.
Well, that's why we're here.
That people get so many misconceptions and bad ideas about what's going on, because you were getting painted with a very poor brush. Okay.
And I deserved it. And you know why? And here's what I am guilty of. As the chairman of the board, I believe, under the rules of procedure, I could have not accepted a resolution to come forward, but I would have to give that legislator 5 days or something.
Right.
So if I was guilty of something, but I had to make my point, and I don't know if this was the best time to do it, but for the future, the point had to be made that we just can't change things on our own. So if I made another mistake, it was not trying to table the resolution that night, like it was the night before. So I'm not running away here, scot-free. There's definitely, if I could do anything different, that's what I probably would have done. Either not entertained it and said, look, Barbara, put it into committee. I was just under the assumption that both the legislature.
You thought that had already happened.
I thought, and everybody was.
I don't know what your rules are. I'll tell you how they would compare to the City of Amsterdam Common Council rules.
What? They got rules. They have rules.
Yeah, they have rules.
Okay,
they
just
don't
checking.
follow them. But you would need unanimous consent to put on a resolution at as late a date as it was that she put it on, because it was not the same resolution that had been presented timely the previous Thursday.
We would have had to amend the rules of procedure. We would have had to amended the agenda.
That's right. You would have to move to amend the agenda to put that on. So you were stuck with a procedural anomalies.
I just want to also, I know we're running out of time, but I want it to be very clear that
we just keep going as long as we feel like it, because I control the
this
switch.
is the show with no name.
And the show with no time limit.
Well, my comments today, I'm not directing the criticism towards Barbara, towards Ryan, although some had been thrown our way. It was more to come on here so you understood what happened.
And that's important.
And I'll take the arrows as much as I need to take them. I'll take them. But I want to assure everybody there was no. Listen, politics is politics. We all know that. As John Becker says, we're all friends here.
Wait, we're all friends where?
But, politics is politics. Sure, you have side conversations.
I don't know about you. I hate Michael Chiara.
That's right.
I don't.
This is a show of hate.
But, we all have side comments and conversations about what's going on. and hey, how you going to vote, or could you support that? It happens every day. Any one of those 9 legislators or anybody else that's in this room that's ever been involved with politics cannot stand and deny that. It happens all the time.
Right, but the idea is when you hear speeches of how much everyone loves everyone and how much you care for the public and how transparent you are,
I always reach for my wallet.
Yes, right.
Make sure
Right.
it's
And
still
and then you look at the budget, and it's nice that we're going down, and you look at stuff like that, and you say, but how many meetings did you really hold on finance on the budget?
Oh, we had public hearings. We had meetings.
Wait. How many meetings did you have where you really dissected this budget?
Quite a few.
Really?
Yeah, ask Martin.
You
chaired it.
No, when I went that one night, I was handed a sheet of paper with all these changes on.
Yeah, but this budget process, Michael, started. We all
I know how
had
we did
our
it
budget.
before.
When I sat home in my living room chair, I dissected that budget. For me to come back and only
Isn't that your duty?
and that's what I did. I'm not complaining
We
about
did
it.
this
Just ask
on the
me when I
board.
did.
By the way, this is
Every
WCSS
night.
1490 in Amsterdam, New York. The show with no name is running over just a couple of minutes while we wrap things up here.
But you got to remember, we have an obligation to do this. And now, if you're asking me if in front of the public, we should have dissected every line.
Yeah, basically.
We may have a difference of opinion, but
We
I don't.
probably
I don't.
would.
I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to. We need to dissect what we disagree on.
See, and the fact that this is the first major thing that you've dealt with of major controversy, it was important to make sure people understood what it takes. And you've cleared things up. I have
Yes,
a
you
different
have.
perspective on what took place and why it took place than it was how everybody heard about it.
If Barbara
and then
were
the
on
fact
the-
that this is the first thing.
If Barbara were on the show right now, she would probably say to you, in retrospect, I probably would have had that committee meeting. I probably, or 2, or whatever it would have taken, and explained it. It's not a criticism to her. I think, listen, I really believe
we learn by our mistakes.
we do. And if you
I
can't
hope.
if you can't figure out that you learn by mistakes, then you shouldn't sit in the seat. There's nothing about. I just want to make it clear to the public, there was no,
Backroom deal.
backroom deal with this or anything else. I mean, the whole part-time, again, an analysis, we're lacking the analysis.
How it went.
Some could
Yeah.
criticize and say, then how do you make that vote? Well, you're right. How do you make that vote without it? I know what my vote was about, and I said in the paper, I wouldn't apologize for it. My vote was about the policy and procedure. Did I think going around that room that night that it was probably going to pass? I didn't think so, but I guess I was wrong.
You were.
But you know what? Even had it passed, with all this coming out, there was nothing that would prevent us to go back and change it again. Just like we can change it at any time,
Okay.
right?
All right. I want to thank Chairman of the Montgomery County Legislature, Tom Quackenbush, for being our special guest here today. Gavin Murdoch, Mike Chiara, always good to have you. And Jim Nikosha, we stuck in the back of the room. And I should point out that tomorrow is Jim Nikosha's birthday.
Hey,
Happy birthday, Joe Isabel and Jim Nikosha.
And today is also Theodore Roosevelt's
Isn't
birthday.
it Joey's birthday, too?
And we just said Joey.
But I do want to say something. I think we should give our condolences to the Laux family.
Yes. Patty Laux passed away last year, a longtime aide to Mayor Duchesne, and never hesitated to speak her mind
Never.
to any of us, and really a wonderful,
She was very good at
wonderful
what she
woman.
did.
And as many times as we disagreed about things, I always respected her
Very
opinion.
efficient individual.
And,
I mean, we
and her
disagree on a lot
talents.
of things, but she was very
Yeah.
efficient.
So yes.
Now, one other thing to get it straight, because we were confused this morning. What are your hours? What is your program?
We're on Monday from 10 to 12, and
You weren't on today from 10 to 12.
and Wednesday from 11 to 12.
Today was an anomaly.
It was an anomaly. That's right.
Wow, that's too big a word for me.
It was a snafu, as they say in the
Snafu,
military.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Miss Luca, Miss Willow.
All right. Hey. Okay.
My dogs.
Well, if my wife didn't need the car, we'd stay on all day, but it's time to go. So we'll be back. Some of us will be back on Wednesday. Michael, you're always welcome. It's your show.
No, it's not.
So until then,
That was the best thing we
I'm
ever
Bob
did.
Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nikosha, and this has been the show with no name.